Hi, I'm John Hart, and welcome back to Mr. America Hart. Thanks for stopping by today. I'm talking today about our dietary fats. What is it about these fats that is even important? A fat is a fat, right? Well, these days you hear a lot of people who are into their keto types of diet, as well as those who are simply tracking their macros. You'll hear a lot of people say that they're keeping track of their macros, that they have their diet coach having them track their macros, their fats, their proteins, their carbohydrates. And pretty much they treat a fat as if it's just simply a fat. And that can come from nuts, any sort of a nut, almond, peanut, macadamia, cashew, walnut, or it can come from avocado, or it can come from even butter for that matter. So what is it about? And then the fats that come from meats, of course, as well. So what is it about the fats that we could be doing so wrong that maybe we want to address and make a little bit more right? And that simply is not enough omega-3s. I know this sounds pretty simple. However, if we're constantly focusing on having nuts or a quarter of an avocado or a half of an avocado, we're talking about healthy sources of fat. They are healthy, there's no doubt. They have a healthy amount of omega-6s and omega-9s as well. They don't have a super high amount of omega-3s though. So emphasizing a little bit more on raising those omega-3s in what is typically, at least in Western America, the Western hemisphere, I should say, Western culture, we have a diet that's mainly deficient in omega-3s, very low in omega-3s. Having wild-caught salmon, wild-caught fish, those types of protein sources will have naturally higher amounts of omega-3s. Having grass-fed meats and grass-finished meats as well, those types of animals that we eat, they end up having a higher amount of omega-3s because they're eating something along the lines of what their natural diet is, because those animals are not super stressed in their lives. So therefore it transfers to us as humans. When we eat them, we have higher omega-3 foods. And that's basically how we were meant to have them in the beginning. So for overall health and performance, I recommend for sure just emphasizing a little bit more on the omega-3s. I'm not saying get crazy about it, but definitely raise it up. And you'll say to me, well, John, well, I already have olive oil. And I'll say, hey, look, olive oil is great. And I have a bottle right here. This olive oil, first cold pressed olive oil, quality product, thick, has residue in the bottom. I like it a lot. The problem is that it's not super high in omega-3. It's great for your health overall, just like an avocado is, just like nuts are. They're great overall for your health. But we have a balance that we're trying to strike by going after foods that will raise up those omega-3s a little bit higher than what our typical diet, processed diet, as much as you want to say you don't eat processed foods, most of us do. And so as much as you want to say it, we want to raise it up just a little bit more for the most part. I don't know anybody who eats too much omega-3. Apparently, the Eskimos the Eskimo population up in the Alaska region and in near the northern part of our planet, they end up eating higher fat fish that are very high in omega-3s, and they suffer very little heart trouble, heart disease, cardiovascular disease. And so I like that. It sounds very good. So I personally am defaulting a little bit more on those high omega-3 sources of fats. Now, what kind can we have? Well, I just named a couple of them. Wild-caught fish, Pacific wild-caught salmon, not Atlantic salmon. Everybody thinks salmon is great. The same salmon. It looks exactly the same, has the same macronutrient profile of fats, proteins, and carbs. The difference is Pacific is wild-caught salmon, Atlantic is farm-raised salmon. Farm-raised salmon are not fed the same, they're not living in the same environment as the wild-caught, and therefore they have higher stress levels and higher omega-6s and omega-9s and lower omega-3s than the wild-caught version of the same fish. So this kind of tells you a story here. We want to go with the wild-caught. So any wild-caught fish is preferable, of course. walnuts, chia seeds, what are the other ones? Oh boy, flax seeds, flax oil tend to have higher omega-3's, and they'll convert with a lot of people. They'll convert pretty well in their systems, and they'll digest them very well, and it'll do their health overall very well, and will improve the profile of fats in their diet, raising it up a little bit higher. That's what we're after here, is just raising it up a little bit higher. You can have the same macronutrient profile in your diet, the same exact amount of fats in your diet, but search for these kinds of fat sources, right? Walnuts, chia seeds, flaxseed oil. I even have right here, one of my favorites is cod liver oil, and this is lemon flavored cod liver oil. I get this regularly in my house. We have bottles of it in the refrigerator, and we use it as salad dressing, or we put it right on vegetables. So lemon flavor tastes pretty good. It doesn't taste so fishy and so gross. And those omega-3's in that bottle of cod liver oil is super high. So these are some of the sources that I'm talking about, and I'm urging you to head towards that direction a little bit more. The other one, and last, instead of grain-fed meats, go for grass-fed meats, grass-finished meats specifically, which means that they fed them through the entire end of their lives before they gave up their life for us. Those animals ate grass, and they were even grass-finished. So there's a difference these days where you're going to be out there and people say, oh, it's grass-fed, pasture-fed, pasture-raised. And near the end, they're feeding them full of grain. Now, does that make a difference? Yeah, it does. In the blood profile and the fat profile for those animals, the omega-3's are not quite as high as the ones that are grass-finished. And we want to get the best of the best. So for a couple of dollars extra more per pound, you're getting the best fat source in those proteins, in those animals that we do eat, and animal source proteins, I should say. And that's the way that we want to roll. We want to keep it as high as possible through the natural way that we would eat the foods, as well as the animal sources that we're getting those foods from. Keep them as natural as possible. You're starting to see a theme here. Feeding animals a bunch of grains is not normal and healthy for them. Feeding those animals a lot of grass. If they're grass-feeding, grass-eating animals, that's their typical normal diet. And that's the type of thing that has them raise up healthy, and then they have a healthy fat macronutrient profile, higher in omega-3's, and then they have the 6's and the 9's. But those omega-3's are actually there in a healthy profile for humans to consume. And then we have a great cardiovascular health from that point forward. So, simple point being made here today. A little bit more focus on those omega-3 sources of fats. As always, feel free down below. Hit me with your comments. You can also see that red subscribe button off to your bottom right. And if you're liking these videos that I'm shooting, please give that red button a little tap off to your right and a thumbs up off to your left right there. That also helps the channel out. And share it with your friends and family. I appreciate it. Thank you for stopping by. John Hart once again from Mr. America Hart. Thank you.
Hey, do you want John to be your personal trainer? Get your training and diet managed online by Mr. America himself. Go to MrAmericaHeart.com. It's in the link right here below in the video's description.